Hi, I'm Colin, and this is Spaceflight Made Simple. So last week we discussed designing the shuttle and the process of bringing the shuttle from the drawing board to an actual flying vehicle, which, by the way, if you want to see the process of designing the space shuttle, I'll throw a link in one of the corners to that video. But today let's talk about how the shuttle worked and how such a dynamic system functioned as a spacecraft. So, as is commonly well known, the space shuttle is a reusable spacecraft designed to be as reusable as possible to save on costs after the Apollo program. As such, a lot of the aspects of the shuttle were reusable. The entire shuttle orbiter was reusable. The solid rocket boosters were reusable. The only notable exception to this reusability is the external tank, the big orange tank, which falls into the atmosphere and burns up. With the goal being maximum reusability, the shuttle was designed in a very unique and interesting way. So let's begin where a shuttle mission begins. Launch Complex 39 at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The shuttle's components are brought to the Vehicle Assembly Building, which was built for the Apollo program but repurposed for the shuttle program. On top of one of NASA's massive crawlers designed for moving spacecraft to and from the launch pads, the solid rocket boosters are stacked on either side and the external tank is lowered in between. Then the shuttle orbiter is brought over from one of the shuttle processing facilities and rotated and mounted to the side of the external tank. Once the whole thing is mounted and secured and assembled, the shuttle is rolled out very slowly to the launch pad. The several-mile trip takes several hours. Once the shuttle is at one of the launch pads, a large arm is sort of swung around, and it covers the entire shuttle part of the launch stack, which is what I will be calling it from now on. For the record, the launch stack is the external tank, the two solid rocket boosters, and the orbiter. So basically what's sitting on the launch pad when it launches. This arm that covers the shuttle is designed to protect it from the elements, since it will be sitting out on the pad for several months as it is prepared to fly. This arm also operates as an access bay for them to add things to the shuttle. So mainly whatever's put in the cargo bay is added during this phase. This includes space station segments, satellites, or whatever they're carrying up into orbit. Then comes launch day. Several hours before launch, the large structure that's covering the space shuttle itself is pulled back, and the whole vehicle is visible from the outside. Only a handful of hours prior to launch, the crew will board the shuttle and begin the process of preparing it for flight. Shortly before launch, the beanie cap, or liquid oxygen cap, which is the thing that docks to the top of the external tank, is retracted. This comes after the crew access arm, which is the walkway the crew used to board the space shuttle itself, has also been sort of swung out of the way. 6 seconds before liftoff, the shuttle's 3 main engines ignite. Those are the 3 big rocket engines on the bottom of the space shuttle itself. This causes the whole vehicle to sort of move forward a little bit while still being firmly attached down to the launch pad. But at T0, the shuttle's solid rocket boosters ignite, lifting the whole shuttle stack off the pad. After it leaves the launch pad, it does a roll maneuver so that the shuttle itself is on the bottom of the rocket as it continues to sort of curve upwards towards orbit. Once the solid rocket boosters have done their job and run out of fuel, they are jettisoned, and the shuttle's 3 main engines are the only thing carrying it uphill. These 3 main engines are fed from the big orange tank. As the shuttle nears orbit, the 2 smaller orbital maneuvering system engines, which are the 2 smaller engines on either side of the big cluster of engines at the bottom of the shuttle, are ignited, and these help give it that last little push into orbit. Once the shuttle tank is empty and has done its job, it is jettisoned. When the shuttle external tank, the big orange tank, is separated, the main engines of the space shuttle, the 3 big engines, will not light again until the next launch. So, for the record, any images or drawings or whatever where you see where the 3 big engines on the shuttle are blasting it through space is a little inaccurate. Instead, all the maneuvering in orbit will be done with the 2 orbital maneuvering system engines, those 2 smaller engines on either side that I mentioned, which can sort of change the orbit of the shuttle and get it to where it needs to go in space. Once in space, the shuttle opens its payload bay doors to allow heat from inside the shuttle to be radiated outwards. The shuttle then can carry out whatever mission it was sent up there to do, whether that's rendezvousing with the space station or releasing a satellite into orbit. If they are docking or rendezvousing with something, the shuttle is actually coated in all these small thrusters clustered near the nose and the tail of the vehicle that allow it to maneuver itself in very fine increments and very fine maneuvers when it's close to a space station or satellite that it wants to dock with. Once the shuttle has finished whatever it was sent up there to do, it's time to come home. The shuttle orients itself so its tail is pointed forward and fires a deorbit burn, which slows the shuttle down enough to where it falls into the atmosphere. Now, unlike a lot of other spacecraft, the shuttle doesn't have a proper heat shield. It is a system of thermal tiles, which absorb the heat and spread it over the bottom of the shuttle in its entirety. But they still need to do things to help slow the shuttle down as it enters the atmosphere. So the shuttle flies what's called an S-curve, where it curves back and forth as it enters the denser parts of the atmosphere. During this time, the shuttle undergoes intense heat and structural stress. But eventually the shuttle comes out the other end and begins the process of gliding in towards its landing site. Now, there were 3 landing sites over the course of the shuttle program. The shuttle landing facility at Kennedy Space Center, as well as a runway at Edwards Air Force Base and a runway at the White Sands Missile Facility. Only the first few flights used the White Sands runway. All of the other flights landed at either Edwards or Kennedy Space Center. As the shuttle approaches its landing site, it announces its presence with 2 sonic booms, a natural byproduct of the shuttle's shape passing through the sound barrier. When it comes into land, since it has no engines, it's a glider after all, it has 1 shot, and the crew has 1 attempt to bring the shuttle safely down onto a runway. So after the shuttle has successfully landed on the runway, a series of parachutes are deployed from just below the tail, which do the last bit of deceleration that it needs to come to a full stop at the end of the runway. At that point, crews will come in and assist the crew of the shuttle in exiting the vehicle and safing the vehicle so it is safe to be towed over to a processing facility where it can be prepared for the next flight. This is only one in a series of videos I'm doing about the space shuttle leading up to the return of human spaceflight from American soil coming later this year. If you want to keep up to date on future videos in this series, or just on space events in general, head down below at the subscribe button and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. And if you have a question about spaceflight, whether it's about the space shuttle or anything else, leave them down in the comments. I'll try my best to answer them there, or who knows, it might be the topic of a future video. So for Spaceflight Made Simple, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.